Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant this weekend, Undisputed Super Middleweight Championship of the World. I think, if memory serves me correctly, this is the third Undisputed fight we've had this year. It's always good to find out who the man is in each division, and it looks like come Saturday we'll find out who the best super middleweight is right now. And so I was going to do notes on this fight and have like a kind of semi-scripted video, but I thought, screw it, I'm just going to get on the mic and let it all hang out. Don't worry, I won't be doing any freestyle rapping. We don't want any bleeding ears. But this is a good fight, and it's a fight that is definitely worthy of the hype, at least ostensibly. Now, in the lead up to this fight, there have been a lot of polls, a lot of people doing videos, getting the opinions of the boxing fraternity, and it seems like Canelo Alvarez is a very, very firm favourite, and I have to concur this. You can go back to my video, for my post-fight video for the Canelo Billy Joe Saunders fight, and I categorically said that I believe that Canelo is well on his way to becoming undisputed super middleweight champion. And I don't think many people are going to disagree with that, as I say, because when we look at the profiles of each man, we have Canelo Alvarez and we have Caleb Plant. Canelo Alvarez is widely seen as pound for pound number one, if not pound for pound number two, but he's a top two pound for pound fighter. And I know pound for pound rankings are typically very abstract, and it's hard to pinpoint what exact criteria it's based on, but he's widely seen as one of the best operators in the sport of boxing, one of the best competitors, and that's certainly a reputation that is warranted, at least in my opinion. We have Canelo, who officially only has one loss to Floyd Mayweather. I'd argue he has a couple more, but nevertheless, one official loss to Mayweather. Putting that aside, however, he is active, one of the most active fighters you'll come across in the highest level of boxing. When most elite fighters are fighting twice a year at most, he's fighting twice as much. He's fighting 4 times, at least in the past year. This will be his 3rd fight this year, I believe. And it's not just the activity and who he's fighting, because he's fighting good guys, but it's the way he deals with them. He deals with all of his opposition with relative ease. When was the last time you saw Canelo in a tough fight? A back and forth war, a blood and guts battle? It's not often. And it's not because he's picking easy opposition. It's because he is on a constant upward trajectory in terms of development. Canelo Alvarez is slowly, or I don't want to say slowly, but it has been over the course of a few years, he's steadily become one of the most complete fighters. Not invincible, no fighter is, but Canelo Alvarez has turned himself into a very difficult man to beat in the ring. And we have Caleb Plant, on the other hand, who, personally, I've only seen Caleb Plant, I've only been watching Caleb Plant for a few years, since 2018 when he fought Rogelio Medina. I believe it was 2018, around the beginning of the year. And Caleb Plant was someone who, his athleticism immediately stands out. He has such good balance, he's explosive, he's got cat-like reflexes. But when I was watching Caleb Plant, I was looking at him, so I'd always think something's missing. I can't put my finger on it. And I wanted to rate him highly, because he has some very good aspects to his game, but there was just something that just wasn't there, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't nail my colours to the mast and say Caleb Plant is a top level fighter. Now, he's become a champion, but we have to be honest, Caleb Plant hasn't fought at this kind of level before. He's fought the C level guys, the B level guys, and that's B level at best, being generous, because can you consider Uzcata guy a B level guy? Maybe. I think it depends which day it is, you know. So he hasn't fought, Caleb Plant this is, he hasn't fought at the highest level in boxing. And you can understand why Canelo will be a firm favourite. But then if we look even further and we look at the ability of each man, Canelo Alvarez is a formidable fighter. He is someone who has a wide array of weapons at his disposal. He has pretty much every punch in the book, and he can throw each of those punches with quite literally bone-crushing power. And, you know, it sounds like hyperbole, but, you know, just ask Billy Joe Saunders, just ask Callum Smith what happened to his arm. And when you combine that kind of ferocity in terms of punching power and athleticism, because remember, Canelo's explosive. He's not just a heavy-handed guy, he's sharp. Razor sharp, especially on the counter, and he'll rip those shots through the target, you know, be it a hook, an uppercut, not so much the straight punches, but he certainly has those when he needs them. And so if we take this ferocious offense and we pair it with the subtleties that Canelo has added to his game over the years, you know, it makes for a very, very tough task when you want to beat Canelo, when you're on the opposite side of the ring to him. And now G-Man said it best. This is an uphill battle for Plant. Plant is a big guy. He's a decent sized super middleweight. He's, I believe, about 6'1". I imagine he probably weighs in 185 maybe. You look at him, he's ripped to shreds. He's an absolute unit, you know. There's not an ounce of fat on him. Just there's striations and cuts and separation all over the guy. He's really, really strong and a very good athlete. But I believe Plant kind of falls into the post-Mayweather era American prospect mold, where there's a lot of flash but not very much function. And just to go off on a tangent, we are living through the post-Mayweather era right now. And Mayweather, like many fighters, they have so much influence. They're almost icons. You probably could say they are icons. They shape the next generation that comes after them, the next generation of fighters. And now Mayweather is someone who you guys may have heard me criticize for, let's say, shortcutting his technique. Mayweather is a master of boxing. He understands the subtleties and the ins and outs of boxing. And there are very few people with the same level of understanding as Mayweather. But towards the end of Mayweather's career, when he was very much money Mayweather, he would take a lot of shortcuts. He'd shortcut his technique, didn't necessarily engage his brain as much as he could, because there's a lot of boxing IQ up there, but he wasn't always tapping into it, not for 3 minutes of every round. And a lot of young fighters coming up, they see that, and they want to be like Money May. You know, they want to be like Floyd. But it doesn't work like that, because Floyd Mayweather started and he built his foundation. He earned his stripes. He earned his knowledge, his XP. And Money Mayweather just kind of, you know, danced around until the end of his career, having fun in the ring. These fighters, they don't have the science. They don't have the hard-fought experience to fall back on. And that's where there's all flash and very little function. Now, Caleb Plant, as I say, is a good athlete. Look at his physique. You can tell this is an athlete. You look at his performance. You can see the dexterity. You see the balance. You see the explosiveness. The reflexes. He's got it. He has it, you know. But the skill level, the IQ of Caleb Plant, I don't believe is there. Because Caleb Plant is someone who makes he's quite amateurish. I want to say that he's a polished amateur. You know, he's like a very dedicated, very experienced elite amateur. But there's a big jump between that amateur style and the pro style. And now Caleb Plant has had success. Remember, he's IBF champion. But then also remember, you know, he hasn't fought the cream of the crop just yet. This will be his first step up to the highest level of boxing, professional boxing. And some of you may be wondering, well, you know, outmatch, what exactly do you mean? Like, what are plants' limitations? Okay, so you guys know I'm all about technique, and I'm all about the biomechanics of technique and the application of it. Caleb Plant spends nearly every minute of every round on the center line. And now that doesn't seem like much, but if you've boxed, you'll know that, I mean, it goes without saying, your head is prime target number one for your opponent. And so that's already some initiative, some rationale for you to start moving that target to make it harder to hit. But then if we look at the engagements that Caleb Plant gets into, so when he's offending his opponent, or when in boxing, when you offend your opponent, you are putting yourself in danger, because you are now entering an engagement where there's going to be offense from both sides. And so because of this inherently dangerous position, you need to have some defensive contingencies. One such contingency is learning the proper articulation of your body's mass to take your head from one side of the center line to the other. But consequently and simultaneously, that allows you to put that body mass into your shots and accelerate it to generate power. And now, what are the two main criticisms of Caleb Plant? It's that he lacks power, he lacks that definitive knockout punch, and he tends to get clocked a lot, you know, especially late in the fight where his stamina just dips and his legs aren't necessarily as springy as they were in the fight. He does start to become a bit of a sitting duck, and there's very little articulation in his body to allow for defensive maneuvers. But then also the lack of power, as I say. You cannot afford to have a weakness like this against many elite fighters, but much less Canelo, because Canelo, as I say, is so sharp on the counter, and he has so many counters for so many offensive strategies that his opponents like to employ against him. This is someone who's truly honed their craft, and he understands how to get around certain obstacles. You can see the adjustment that Canelo makes. And now, don't get me wrong, Canelo is not unbeatable. He makes mistakes. He has his own flaws. For example, if you look at Canelo a couple of years ago, he'd often turn up to the ring with knee braces, you know, just these little sleeves around the knee, or sometimes K-tape around the knees. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, you know, he's a thick-set guy. His body doesn't probably react that well to doing the morning miles and the long distance running. Yeah, look, I take that in consideration. It's high mileage. These guys, you know, knees get sore, they get tender. But look at the way Canelo throws his shots. He doesn't always fully articulate himself, and a lot of the time his foot anchors him down. And that's going to put a lot of torsion, a lot of torque on the knees, on the hips, the lower back, and it can really aggravate them. And that's just one example of Canelo's own flaws. And now he's still a considerable puncher with that technique. He can still separate you from your senses, but it shows that even Canelo's not maximizing his full potential just from a little technical flaw. Also, we see Canelo sometimes falls into the trap of not setting up his punches. You can go back and watch the Billy Joe Saunders gamble video, because Saunders got caught out because he didn't set up his punches. He leapt straight in with a lead right hook and got clocked by Canelo. Pretty much ended the fight, because that was the uppercut that Canelo landed, which fractured Billy Joe Saunders' eye socket. Canelo, as I point out in that video, he also got found out because he didn't add any layers to his offense. Now, human error is a thing, and mistakes happen, and even the best guys in boxing or any sport, they make mistakes and their opponent capitalizes on it. But I just don't see how Caleb Plant can pull this one out of the bag, because we know that Canelo Alvarez has a promotional machine behind him. He is the face of boxing, or at least one of the faces of boxing. And so it's very difficult to get a points decision over him. You know, the old adage is, you know, you have to knock Canelo out to get a draw. And it's true. Unfortunately, it's true. But that aside, Canelo, the fighter, is very difficult to beat. And for that reason, I can only see a Canelo victory. I'd be very shocked if Caleb Plant managed to pull it out the bag. So, for a formal prediction, I'm going to go for Canelo Alvarez winning by stoppage in round 9 specifically. I feel it. I don't know why, but I just feel that the style of Canelo, the sharp counters, the pressure, slow and steady. He's not the fleetest of foot, but he's slow and steady and consistent. Probably knows how to pace himself a bit better than Caleb Plant, who we've seen gas a little bit. Caleb Plant, mobile of foot, but when it comes to the engagement, which is most important, very static on the center line. Canelo's got every punch in the book pretty much. Don't be surprised if we see Caleb Plant suffer a similar injury to Billy Joe Saunders. Don't be surprised if we see some broken eye sockets. I anticipate Canelo breaking Caleb Plant down, landing some very sharp punches, busting Caleb Plant up. But Caleb Plant, I think he's got heart. You know, this is someone who knows what he wants, and he's willing to go through fire to get it, or at least try to. And I believe that his corner will probably throw in the towel round 9 after taking some pretty full-blooded shots from Canelo Alvarez. So that's my formal prediction. Canelo Alvarez, round 9 stoppage, Caleb Plant's corner, throw in the towel to save Caleb Plant from himself. Now, I hope it's a good fight. I think it's going to be a good fight. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you very much. Your listen is very much appreciated. If you could like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.